All right, everyone, welcome to the first lesson for this week. We're going to talk about basics of graphs, the distance formula, and the midpoint formula. Okay, so this week you're going to learn the basics of a Cartesian coordinate system, how to determine whether an ordered pair is a solution to an equation, how to find x and y intercepts of a line, how to use the intercepts to graph lines, and then how to calculate the distance between 2 points and the midpoint between 2 points. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just the basics of a graph. As you can see on the right here, we just have a basic Cartesian graph. You have an x-axis and a y-axis. There are certain points about this graph that are important. The first one is the origin. The origin is the point in the center of the graph. So there's the point there. That's the origin. Okay. Along with the origin, you have the x-axis, which is a horizontal line running through the center of the graph. And then you have the y-axis. Okay. The x-axis and the y-axis split the graph into 4 quadrants. Each quadrant is labeled with a number, a Roman numeral. And the numbering is done counterclockwise, starting with the top right. Okay. When we look at a graph, we use ordered pairs in order to locate points. Ordered pairs are written in the form x and y. And so the x-coordinate tells us whether to go left or right. The y-coordinate tells you whether to go up or down. And you would use those coordinates to plot points on the graph. So the next thing we're going to do is practice plotting some points. So for the first example, you can see we're going to plot the point 3 and 5. So that means we're going to go to the right 3 on the positive x-axis, and then up 5. And here's our point 3 and 5. Okay, then we're going to plot these other points, -2 and 1. That means we're going to go to the left 2 on the x-axis and then up 1. The next point, -4 and -3, means we're going to go to the left 4 and then down 3. And finally, the last point 2 and -5, we're going to go to the right 2 and then down 5. So as you can see, we've plotted these points on the graph based on their x-coordinates and their y-coordinates. So in addition to being able to plot points on a graph, you should be able to look at an equation and determine if a given ordered pair or a given point is a solution to that equation. And equations are typically written using x and y variables, and they contain some kind of equal sign. To determine if an ordered pair is a solution to an equation, simply substitute for x and y and then determine if both sides are equal. And so let's try this example. We have y equals 2x minus 3. And we're given 2 points. The first point is 1 and -1. We want to test and see if this point is a solution to y equals 2x minus 3. So the given point are coordinates, x and y. If we use those coordinates, we can then just plug into the given equation, and if both sides are equal, then the point is a solution. So here we can see that y is -1, and x is 1. If we plug in those points, we get -1 is equal to 2 minus 3. So -1 equals -1, and this first point is a solution. We can then do the same thing with the second point, 0 and 3. We'll start again with y equals 2x minus 3. We're going to plug in our point for x and y. So y is 3, x is 0. And now we get 3 equals 0 minus 3, or 3 equals negative 3, which is not true. So the second point is not a solution. Continuing on, if we're given the graph of the line or given an equation, we need to be able to find the x and y intercepts. The x and y intercepts are the points where the graph or the line crosses the x and y axis. When the graph crosses the x-axis by design, the y-coordinate's equal to 0. Likewise, when you cross the y-axis, the x-coordinate's equal to 0. So to find these two intercepts, you would just set the respective opposite coordinate equal to 0. So to find the x-intercept, set y equal to 0 and solve for x. And to find the y-intercept, set x equal to 0 and solve for y. Okay. Remember that x and y-intercepts should always be written as ordered pairs. And you can see the example there in the bottom of the page. So now we're given this equation and we want to find the x and y intercepts. The equation is 5x minus 3y is equal to negative 15. So let's start by finding the x-intercept. To find the x-intercept, we're just going to set y equal to 0. So we have 5x minus 3 times 0 equals negative 15. It gives 5x is equal to negative 15. Divide both sides by 5, and you see that x is negative 3. And so our x-intercept is going to be the point negative 3 and 0. Now let's do the same thing to find the y-intercept. We had 5x minus 3y is equal to negative 15. To find the y-intercept, we're just going to set x equal to 0. So we get 5 times 0 minus 3y equals negative 15. So we get minus 3y equals negative 15. 5 times 0 is 0. Divide both sides by negative 3. And you get y equals 5. And so the y-intercept, remember it's always a point. The y-intercept is going to be the point 0 and 5. Now sometimes you're given a graph and not just the equation in order to find the x and y intercepts. In this case, we can just look at the picture and determine the points where the graph crosses the lines, or where the graph crosses the x and y axis. So if we look here at the picture, you can see the graph crosses the y-axis at the point 0 and 4. And so this is our y-intercept. And then it crosses the x-axis at the point 1 and 0, and that's our x-intercept. So when you're given the graph, just use the points to locate the x and y intercept. You can use the intercepts of a given equation in order to graph a line. Remember that it only takes 2 points to make a line. Right? So if the x and y intercepts do not occur at the origin, then you can use both intercepts to graph the line. If the x and y intercepts do occur at the origin, then they'll be the same, and you will need another point in order to graph the line. So to graph the line, first find the x and y intercepts, plot those points, and then draw a line between the two. So let's try an example. We're going to use the given graph to find the x and y intercepts, and then we're going to plot the line. Our given equation is 2x plus 5y is equal to negative 10. To find the x-intercept, we're going to set y equal to 0. And so we get 2x plus 5 times 0 equals negative 10, which gives 2x equals negative 10. Divide by 2 and we get x equals negative 5. And so our x-intercept is going to be the point negative 5 and 0. So starting with the y-intercept, we want to make sure that x is equal to 0. So we're going to get 2 times 0 plus 5y is equal to negative 10. 2 times 0 is 0. If we then divide both sides by 5, we see that y is equal to negative 2. And so the y-intercept is going to be the point 0 and negative 2. And we then plot those 2 points on the graph, negative 5 and 0, and then 0 and negative 2. We can draw a line between them, and we've graphed the line. So the final part of this section, we're going to talk about using the distance formula and the midpoint formula to locate information about points. As you can see here, the distance between 2 points is given by that formula below. To find the distance between the 2 points, just plug in the values and then simplify if necessary. Okay? Remember to write your answer as a simplified root, not necessarily as a decimal. Pay attention to what the problem asks for. So let's try this once. Find the distance between the given points. We're given negative 3 and 7, and 2 and 11. The distance formula is given by the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. In this case, we'll label our points x1 and y1, x2 and y2. And we're going to plug them into the equation. x2 is 2 minus x1 is negative 3 squared plus y2 is 11 minus y1 is 7 squared. 2 minus negative 3, the two negatives become a positive, and then we get 2 plus 3, which is then 5 squared, plus 4 squared, which is the square root of 25 plus 16, or the square root of 41. Similarly, if we want to find the midpoint between two points, then we can use this formula given here. To find the midpoint, just plug in the values and simplify. So we want to find the midpoint between 7 and negative 2 and 9 and 5. Our midpoint formula, x1 plus x2 divided by 2 will give you the x coordinate. y1 plus y2 divided by 2 will give you the y coordinate. And so if we plug in our points, once again, let's label them x1 and y1, x2 and y2. If we plug in our points, we get x1 plus x2, so 7 plus 9 divided by 2. and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2, which gives 16 over 2 and 3 over 2. And so the midpoint is going to be given by 8 and 3/2. And so at the end of this lesson, you should be able to plot points on a graph, find x and y intercepts, and use those x and y intercepts to plot lines, and then find the distance and midpoint of line segments.